Sassy Gran Doris just uploaded a domestic violence episode. Let's take a look.
So you have been helping one of your friends, and you've been friends with this lady for a very, very long time.
Very long time.
And what's going on with her?
Well, she's asking for my help for the second time. The first time I told her to get a restraining order, get out of there, and I told her what to do then, so she knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, I fell for it. I fell for it again.
Fell for what?
She said, I keep hearing him say, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And it runs through my head all the time, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And that's her husband, and she believes him still.
And so a little context is that she left an abusive, violent husband.
Yes.
A year ago.
Yes.
And a year later, she decided to go back again.
Yes.
And you are furious, right? But you're also sympathetic to her because you understand.
I understand, but I'm furious at her.
And in a year, she just said she felt lonely because she was older.
Yes.
She felt like she wasn't going to find anybody else.
Right.
She spent a lot of nights alone. She didn't really have that many girlfriends. Yeah. The kids were out of the house. And she missed him. Mm-hmm. And she kind of erased a lot of the bad things and just started remembering all the good parts of their life.
Right. Because he swore to her, swore up and down, I'll never do it again. I promise.
And he was both physically and verbally abusive to her.
Yes.
Very, very,
extremely.
Very.
Yes.
Now, he had an alcohol problem.
Yes.
And he said he stopped drinking.
He did.
So, maybe, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But you're still trying to get her to leave again.
Well, she asked me for help again.
Oh, that's right, because it happened again.
Yes.
It happened again.
Yeah, she's in the same situation now because she doesn't have the children to deal with.
Right.
But now she has to get out of there because he threatened to kill her.
Holy crap. So he threatened to kill her. And the question that many will ask is, why doesn't she get out of there? Well, I'll go into a little deeper what's going on a psychological level. But there's a place in here where Geo addresses some of the sociological dynamics. I get the frustration that Dolly must have. But I also appreciate the fact that she waited till her friend came and asked her for help. She didn't just jump in there berating her friend for, why are you still here? In a minute, we'll find out how Dolly relates to her friend.
So you've called the police?
I did, and I told her to get a restraining order immediately and see if you can get him out of the house so you don't have to be on the run. Let him find a place to go this time. See if we can do it that way.
Right. Well,
hopefully. Because she's always the one that has to leave. She's always, it seems like the women are those ones that flee if there's a way to get them out.
Yeah, because the women are the ones whose lives are in danger, right? So that makes sense. Now, on this restraining order thing, look, y'all, it's always good to have that record there, but you have to understand that these jokers can decide not to pay attention to it at any time. And at any time that they decide that they're not going to pay attention to it, your life is in danger. Okay? So you can't just figure that a piece of paper is going to make him start acting rationally. And the second thing is, many of the courts will show that women who file restraining orders, they themselves violate the restraining order. So if they're allowing themselves to be drawn into, we need to talk, can I talk to you? And they go to this guy or have this guy come to them, then they are violating the restraining order and their lives are in danger. Now, I haven't looked at the stats to be able to support this, but anecdotally, I've observed that women who might have a restraining order might already be in the domestic violence system where they're getting the support they need and their children are safe. Then they make the huge mistake of just one more time, let's talk, and they've been taken out because of that decision. So understand that the restraining order is a good way to document that you're having trouble with this knucklehead, but don't you be the one to violate it.
Well, it's true, and just if we go back into our own past,
Yes.
we'll start with your husband,
Yes.
who it all started out great,
Yes.
but what was he was psychologically abusing you at first. What was he doing to you?
Well, he just made me feel worthless and hopeless.
How?
It was because he always said, I bet everybody told you you're pretty. If you really want my opinion, you're not pretty.
Wow.
And you're fat.
Wow.
And you look ridiculous most of the time. I mean, just bad-mouthing me up one side and down the other.
And didn't he say that your friends and your family were talking to him?
Behind my back.
Right.
Yes. Yes. That your friends tell me everything you say to them. They're not your friends. They're more my friends.
Right.
Your family confides in me more than you.
Right.
And it leaves you in a confused state of mind. It did me.
So you were...
I was young.
How long did you deal with that?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
And then something else happened.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, he choked me until I passed out. And when you are choked until you pass out, the next step is you're dead.
So for years, it was verbal abuse and psychological abuse, but no physical abuse.
Right.
And then one day, out of nowhere,
Yes.
he just decided to choke you.
Well, I didn't know his war injury was that bad.
Or he had PTSD from the war.
And I don't know if he thought I was the enemy or what, but he just reached out and choked me to pick me up off the ground till I couldn't breathe. Till I passed out and fell to the floor. And then my youngest son started screaming and crying, and then he started stuttering after that. Scared everybody.
Right.
And
then you left him immediately.
no, I didn't leave him immediately.
You left him the next day.
No, I didn't.
How long was it until you left?
A year.
You see what he did there? He's trying to make her realize that she's done the same thing that she's frustrated with her friend for doing. This is serious, y'all. This is the deal, okay? If somebody pushes you, you probably slough it off. He was just angry. No. That's how my domestic violence situation started. He started pushing me. And I should have known then that this was not going to get any better. It was only going to get worse. And so any type of violence or extreme disrespect needs to be a red flag. And even if you're not willing to leave at that moment, start planning your exit strategy. Start planning it. Always have an out.
So this man strangled you to the point of unconsciousness.
Yes.
In front of your children.
Yes.
And you stayed.
Yes.
See there? Yep. It's easy for us to sit back after we've come through it and be frustrated with people we love going through it. I get the frustration, but we have to understand that this is a psychological dynamic. And in the case of her friend who got away from it for a certain amount of time, came back to it, sometimes if you've never been there, you just can't fathom that. But we're going to talk, like I said, later about what causes people to do that.
Now
I was convinced that he was right.
You were convinced that he was right about what?
Everything. That it was all my fault. I caused all my stress on myself.
Wow.
You know, that what he did to me was all my fault.
Yeah, and when you're already one down from a history of abuse, either in childhood or whatever the heck it is that caused us to be traumatized, then it's so easy for us to be gaslit into believing less about ourselves. Look, y'all, so this is just me talking, okay? This is not even me coming as a doctor, okay? I'm saying this. If you're in a relationship and every time you attempt to address something that's unacceptable, it always ends with them saying, you're the problem, there's a problem. You've got to pay attention to this, because what happens is it gets beat into your head that, oh, maybe they're right, maybe they're right, maybe they're right. They have to be right, they have to be right. No, nobody can gaslight you unless you allow it, and you will not allow it if you pay attention to what I'm saying to you. They will gaslight you to turn it around to you're the problem in the entire world. Okay? Behind that is another red flag. People who never take ownership of their wrong. You can't be in relationship with that, y'all. You cannot be. And what makes it worse is when, on top of their inability to own their mess, they're trying to blame it on you.
You know, you came from a background, your childhood of abuse with grandma and
Yes.
her father. And
Very violent.
very, very violent. And she fled in the middle of the night, taking all 5 kids
Yes.
and just running for her life.
Yes.
Never looking back.
Yes.
Just really
Yes.
said, I'm out of here and I'm leaving. And you told yourself you would never ever be in that situation.
I know I did.
And then you ended up in that
I
situation.
was vulnerable. Yes, I did.
He beat them within an inch of their life. My older brother was beat like a full-grown man. I watched him in the front yard, beat him on the head and on the back, beat him and beat him and beat him. And he wouldn't stop beating him, and I couldn't stop it. And I remember one night he had my mother bent over backwards with steaming hot water pouring in her face, choking her. And I jumped up on his, got a chair, jumped up on his back and tried to choke him. And I beat on him and I beat on him and I beat on him. My mom was in the hospital. And when she came out, I didn't know who she was. I didn't know her because she didn't have bruises on her face or black eyes.
Wait, because she didn't?
It's because she didn't.
So she was always so bruised?
She was always black and blue.
And that when she wasn't black and blue,
I didn't know who she was.
God, Mom.
I will not forgive him.
And another thing that's interesting to me is that growing up, I watched you protect me and my brother like literally like a bear. I watched you tackle people to the ground,
Yes.
male and female,
Yes.
and beat them when they tried to hurt us.
Yes.
I watched that with my own eyes.
Yes, I did.
And so somebody that has that conviction, that awareness of abuse and that strength, and to still become a victim,
I know.
is very interesting.
It just seemed like it didn't matter if it was me, but you better not put your hands on my babies.
How sad. How really, really sad. So you stayed with him another year after that. And then what made you finally leave?
So I started thinking about it, and I thought, I'm not all those things. He's not right in the head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's trying to make me feel bad about myself and belittle me and think that I'm worthless, and I'm believing it. So I had to change that around.
You filed for divorce and never looked back.
That's right. I did file for divorce, and I did never look back.
See, there you go. See, this the deal. Their whole control dynamic is to keep you away from anybody or anything that's gonna show you truth. They don't want you to come to the realization Dolly came to, because they know that once you do, their control is broken. They're control freaks, okay? And they are traumatized individuals who have not addressed their own trauma, but it's playing out in every blow to your psyche. Their traumas playing out in every physical blow. See, they're taking it out on you, and you're a victim of somebody else's trauma. Okay? And that's the only way they know to deal with the world, right? So when you begin to see the truth, when you begin to deal with objective truth, then their hold on you becomes completely weakened, and they can't handle that, right? They can't handle that. Understand that it's unresolved trauma in our lives that make us targets for those kind of people. Whether it's psychological or physical abuse in a relationship or a domestic situation, it's always something they see in us, our unresolved trauma, that attracts their trauma to us, okay? And so it's always unresolved trauma. Note how she said, she told herself that she would never. Please, give me a dime for every time one of us traumatized people said that we saw something in our lives that we would never put up with ever again. And then we wind up in that situation. Why? Because there's still things inside of us that are unaddressed. And as long as they remain unaddressed, we're never, ever going to get better enough to not walk ourselves right into the situations we swore up and down we would never do. It happens every single time. So that our focus in healing can't be the wrong that was done to us to the extent that, oh, I'm going to do the opposite of that, or I'm never going to be that. That's still an external focus, when in order to heal the trauma, to address the trauma, we have to take an internal focus.
I'm really, really proud of you, because usually, as the more time that goes on, when your abuser is gaslighting you and making you believe these things, the more it goes on, the more you believe it.
Yes.
And it's a very rare thing when you finally go, this is nonsense. I don't believe any of this.
Yes.
You know, so congratulations on that, because
thank you.
It's usually the other way around.
Too long, I think.
Well, you survived it.
I did.
However long it takes, as long as you're still breathing, it's never too late. And I agree with Gio. Congratulations, Dolly, on waking up and realizing that you were being lied to about yourself. And the bad thing is, there are a lot of us out here that have been in domestic violence situations where we'd already been hearing them lies growing up. You don't matter, you this, you that, all kind of lies. So we've got all that in us. So we walk out of that situation. We're no longer under that person who was treating us like that. But unless we address the fact that we still have those voices in our heads and understand how all of that, even though you walked away from it, is still informing your life in the here and now, until we address that unresolved trauma, we'll just keep making these mistakes. It's the human condition, y'all.
And then you jumped into another abusive relationship.
I know.
This time the abuse was towards us.
I know.
And you didn't know.
Yes.
And now
I was so mad.
I know.
I was so livid and upset because neither one of you spoke up.
So you had a relationship with a man that beat the crap out of my brother and I.
Yes.
And he was really an alcoholic. He had bottles hidden everywhere.
Yes.
And he did a really good job of hiding it.
Because I didn't know.
Right. He did a really good job of hiding it, but he would take his anger out. He would punch us in the stomach and punch us in the face and punch us in the mouth. And he was an insane monster. But the reason we didn't tell is because he said if we told, that he would kill you.
Yes.
And so we took it in silence.
Yes.
And we were terrified something would happen to you. But one night, he was out of alcohol, and we lived out in the country. And I was very young.
Yes.
I was
8,
9, 10, I don't remember. And he said, you're going to drive to the store. And I got lost at night down a dark dirt road. And when I realized I was lost, he said, back up. And so he was making me steer, and he stepped on the gas, and the car was going really fast, and I was trying to steer backwards on a dark road, and the car went off the road into a ditch and flipped sideways. My brother and I crawled out of the car through the windows because the car was on its side, and we just started running. Mm-hmm. We started running for our lives. We came running up the driveway at the same time you were coming home, and my brother just started screaming.
Yes.
And just told you everything.
Yes.
And you were in such a state of shock.
Yes.
Like I saw your face change into worry, fear, terror, anger. And we ran in the house and shut the door, and then he was right behind us. And so he got in, and we had a built-in bar, and it had glass shelves. And I remember you taking the glass.
Yes.
And then what?
I took that glass and I tried to cut him in half with it.
Yeah.
I swung that glass and hit him in the side of the stomach, and I tried to cut him in half. And I ran in and got my rifle.
You ran in and got a rifle?
Went in and got my rifle, and I shot it. I didn't shoot him, but I shot it at his feet. He took off running outside, jumped in his car, and I stepped out on the balcony on the deck, and I shot and broke out his wing window in the front driver's side.
See, now this next one is for the abuser. Look, I'm going to ask y'all, how out of their mind must a son of a gun be to treat you like that and then lay down and go to sleep in the same house with you? You done lost your mind, mister, because the day I wake up and I've had enough. Look, y'all, I'm be honest with y'all. I got a good butt kicking in me from 1979. And there's a chip on my shoulder so I can take all of that out on the next son of a gun to mistreat me. And you never know when somebody reaches their tipping point, so the abusers need to beware. Now look at her. She had a gun in the house. You've been messing with my kids. You done lost your mind. Don't make no mistake and lose your life up in here. I ain't mad at her, see? Yeah, see, and this is the control. See, we've got to beware of these control dynamics. This is the control. I'm going to mistreat you. I'm going to abuse you. But I have to add this layer of threat that if you tell on me, I'm going A, B, C, D, E. See, now, I know there have been some jokers that have done A, B, C, D, E. Right? But my thing is, as long as they can instill fear. See, it's instilling fear. Fear, 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 fear. Fear. Now we come out of traumatized backgrounds full of fear. We meet a son of a gun, we swamp down, we never go through this kind of crap, and now we're in the middle of that. What is this? More fear. They don't want you to tell. He had them kids scared to tell because he threatened the life of their mother, right? But oh Lordy, when she found out, it was on till the break of dawn. Okay? So abusers need to be careful. Pay it because you laying your head down after mistreating somebody. You going to sleep and you never know whether you're going to wake up hurting, crying, hollering, or wake up and when somebody been putting up with your crap forever, right? Let me shut up. I'm about to get demonetized over here. Telling the truth.
In the head.
Right.
But then I moved.
Yeah, we immediately moved. I remember moving.
Yes.
And it was a long time and everything was fine. And we were completely happy and it was fine and things were good. And then one day that all shattered again.
Yes.
He found us.
Yes. He came in and started.
He kicked the door in while we were watching
pounding.
TV.
He started pounding on the door and he busted through that door.
Yeah.
He busted through that door.
I ran in and got a rifle.
Yes.
And he snatched that rifle by the barrel out of my hand and started beating me with it.
Yes. Yeah. I went and got knives, 4 of them. I didn't even have a chance to use them. I mean, as soon as I turned around, I had a fist in my face.
And then you got up and you ran to the closet and you pulled out another rifle.
Yes.
And I was calling 911.
Yes.
I remember him standing there with that smug look on his face saying, "You're not going to do it." And what did you say to the operator?
I said, I want you to have a policeman come and remove this intruder from my house. Because if you don't remove him from my house immediately, you're going to be removing a dead body. Because I'm going to kill this man. He busted in my house.
Right.
And he's beat my kids to a pulp.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, be here, because this is going to be a dead man you're coming after now.
Right.
Yes.
And they arrested him.
And they put him in jail.
And we moved again.
Yes.
And we never heard from him again.
Right.
See, that's why I tell y'all, prepare. At the first sign of this kind of mistreatment, you need to start socking away some money or something. And don't tell anybody, right? And see, this is the thing. We always want women in this situation to have a support system, somebody you can go to. But my thing is, you can't go to the wrong person because you've got to trust this individual to keep their mouth shut. They can't be talking to anybody and throwing you under the bus.
Cycle of abuse, your father, and then how you got into those abusive...
Stupid situations.
But you didn't know the second one, like you had no idea, but you have sympathy for your friend because you understand.
Yes, I don't want her to be stupid like I was. It's not stupid, it's brainwashed. I don't know what it is. It's psychological or something.
It's a lot of things. It's a fear. Yeah, it's fear of being alone. It's fear of what will I do? It's this warped sense of love. Yeah. It's I need to keep my family together. I don't want to be a failure. I don't want my friends to think I'm a failure. I got into a bad marriage. Or I don't want my family to think I got into a bad marriage.
All those things.
So there's so much that goes into it. And just because you're being abused doesn't mean you're a weak person.
Well, I felt weak at the time.
Right. And so do so many women. They feel helpless. They feel hopeless. They don't feel like there's any help. There's nowhere for them to go. There's nothing for them to do.
He called it a warped sense of love. And that's really getting to the root of what I was saying earlier about how we'll say, I'm never going to do this, never going to do that, and wind up repeating this trauma cycle, right? And so we do acquire, especially if we saw a lot of stuff like Dolly did as she was growing up, we acquire this warped sense of love where this is the perfect place for me to put this in here. This is the cycle of abuse, and it perfectly demonstrates this warped sense of love and how it affects us and leads us into these domestic violence cycles that we find it difficult to break from. The cycle of abuse begins with tension building. You have increased levels of tension leading up to the event. Communication breaks down. The victim is fearful and then walking on eggshells. In part 2 of the cycle, you have the verbal, emotional, and physical abuse. Part 3, reconciliation. The abuser apologizes, blames the victim, gaslights, kind of minimizes and denies that the incident occurred. Now, this denial and minimization can occur on the part of both the victim and the abuser. Finally, we have the calm before the storm. I call this the honeymoon phase. It's a period of no abuse, avoidance, denial, again on the part of the abuser and the victim, and you see the abuser display remorse. Now, as sincere as they sound, all of this is just a setup and part of this abuse cycle, because the promises that you get from the abuser in this phase are what I call future faking, making promises for the future that will never come true. And out of the honeymoon phase, we begin the cycle again. I can relate to this cycle. It's exactly how it played out for me. But most of the cycle, you're on eggshells, right? This, I love you, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. They sound so sincere, but it always comes back around to the abuse because they're wrestling with internal dynamics that they refuse to deal with head on. And you are seeking that next level of love. So you might have grown up in an abusive situation, and so you might have experienced periods where everything was okay. And so you become kind of internally used to this cycle of, okay, I'm gonna treat you like heck, but you're just holding out hope for that reward of that honeymoon phase. You're holding out hope to the point where you think it's normal to be in a situation where for every ounce of pleasure, there's a pound of pain. In your internal psyche, you think that in order to be loved, all of this crap has to come along with it, right? And so you're just holding out for the reward phase of the cycle. Now, I know this is just sounding crazy to a lot of people. I'm just saying that's how it works out. And if internally you're, again, unresolved trauma has been conditioned to that type of cycle, then you wind up right back in a relationship where you got that same kind of cycle. A little less serious is when we're in and out of all kinds of toxic relationships of all kinds over and over and over again. And I'm talking to you as somebody who's been there, done that too many times, okay? So the key is the unresolved trauma and the way the abuse conditioned us in the past, okay, has us tolerant to this cycle of abuse.
Like, there's two scenarios, right?
There is.
There's flee for your life in the moment.
Yes.
And there's plan on leaving.
Yes. And I prefer the plan on leaving.
Okay.
I've had to flee for my life so many times. And it had been so much better if we had planned.
And when you're planning, what are some of the things you can do to plan?
Well, I prefer a duffel bag, but you can get a bag. And what you need to do is you want to put documents in there: birth certificates, driver's license, financial statements,
Social security
numbers, because you're going to need those. You're going to need those for references.
For help, for financial help.
Yes.
Right, especially if you have kids, you're going to need their birth certificates and their social security numbers, and you're going to need...
if you have small children, you must take diapers and formula and a change of clothes.
An extra car key.
Yes.
Right, and make sure that the bag is hidden where he's never going to find it.
Yes.
And another thing is when you're leaving, you have to leave at a time where you're giving yourself enough time to get away before he notices.
Yeah.
Write down a bunch of phone numbers of friends, family, some of these resource centers, because if your phone is broken or snatched or
charge it,
or he looks through it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you have some phone numbers written down on a piece of paper in your hidden bag.
Yes.
Yep. Oh man, that's one of the most powerful aspects of this video. That information right there. I know I had a situation where this joker, I knew the whole relationship was in trouble long time before I left. But the straw was me sitting in front of him with him holding a pew-pew in my face for 45 minutes. Well, in that moment, I just completely dissociated. I removed myself from that and just tried not to make him angry so that he would pull that trigger. And I ain't say nothing to him. He put the thing away, and I don't know how I got out of that. But I started packing paper bags. I didn't have no fancy luggage. Packing paper bags and putting my stuff in it. And the place was so messy. I spent a month cleaning that place when I moved in with this fool, okay? But it just was messy, and so I could get away with just hide these bags off in corners. I must have done that for weeks. Didn't say nothing to him, right? Meanwhile, I'm looking for another place to go so I could make my getaway, and I knew just when I could find the time to get away when he wasn't around. And when that time came, I had my place set up. I grabbed all those bags out of all those corners, and I was out of there. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call this fool, nothing. Okay? I just was out of there because here I was I had just left the state from one domestic violence situation and ran into this fool. Right? And so you have to plan. And I cannot emphasize enough, you guys, the importance of having a plan. Gio addressed this stellarly. You have to have a plan when you're in a dangerous situation. But this is the other catch-22. We want to support people getting out of those situations, but we have to at the same time understand that unless and until they come to a point where they have had enough, there's not a darn thing we can do about it. Not a stinking thing until they decide that they have had enough. And Dolly did right to wait for this woman. She got enough again. She's invited me into this mess, so I'm going to support her, okay? But understand, whether you berating somebody about it and trying to browbeat them into it, you could probably browbeat them into leaving, but then they'll go right back. People have to be ready to leave that situation once and for all. And there are resources out there to support that.
What we told your friend is it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better.
She thought he would have changed after all that time.
Right.
They don't change.
In my generation of cousins, I have a cousin, and she was surprising him with tickets to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And it was her birthday. And he killed her when she was getting out of the shower. He strangled her, and then he strangled their 1-year-old baby.
Yes.
He killed both of them.
Yes.
And your niece's mother,
yes.
What happened to her?
Well, my brother was married to her. They got a divorce, and she got a boyfriend. So I don't know all the details and everything, but in the end, he shot her in the face close up and blew her head off in front of her daughters. And they were young, they were like 6 and 7.
If you see the red flags, if you see anything that isn't right, if you feel, you watch these shows and these women that have been abused or attempted murder or all these, there were always little signs like, pay attention to the signs.
Yes.
And immediately say, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
You stop it in its tracks. And in any instance that you are hit, and no matter what,
Yes.
if you are hit, no matter what, no matter how many apologies, no matter, get out.
Yes.
Get out.
Don't say, oh, it'll be better tomorrow, or he was just drunk. He doesn't mean it.
Right.
I don't want to break up the family.
Right.
Oh, we have a beautiful home.
Right.
I don't want to leave it. So many excuses to take on abuse.
Look, y'all, you can get a million apologies, and these apologies can be heartfelt. But any apology that's not followed by evident change is just hot air. I'm not going to be hearing you apologize for the same dang thing a million times. The other thing, understand that even if these people change, they might change for a minute to please you. They're changing for the point of trying to get you back. It's not an internally driven change if the change occurs on the surface just to get you back, just to please you. Okay? That kind of change is not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable. If that guy quit drinking for any reason other than wanting to change for himself, it's not going to last. And even at that, you quit drinking, but you have not addressed the internal dynamics that had you self-medicating in the first place. And so there's no evident change there. Now, with respect to this is ridiculous. I mean, this woman, look, I can't, y'all. Every instance of domestic violence that ends in the loss of life, whether that's the loss of the life of the person that was abused or the loss of a police officer for walking into that situation, the loss of a child's life, whether that's through having to watch this trauma and it messing up their lives or they lose their lives, that is heart freaking breaking. And it's so frustrating because it was such an unnecessary loss. You know, having been in a domestic violence situation and having kids at the time, this thing is sticky and you need the right support. And it's just heartbreaking, y'all. I don't have any answers. Okay? But that's a life lost. And if you're in that situation, I have put the information to help you in the show notes. So just go there and get the link at the phone number and get professional help, because it might even be a situation where you have to get some kind of therapy for yourself even before you walk out of that situation, because you got to deal with your internal trauma, period, full stop. And unless and until you do, you will walk back into some more toxicity.
I think one of the really important things when a woman leaves is counseling and therapy. Like these places that you go to, take the therapy, take the counseling, build up the self-esteem.
There it is. Yep, you've got to do that.
Tell your friends, if you plan on leaving, if he asks, where are you? Don't say.
Yeah, you had a family member that told him where you were.
Yes.
I'm through, y'all. Absolutely. You don't know who you can trust. You don't know who you can trust unless you put them out there like a thoroughbred. You know how they're going to run, and you've known them long enough to know. See, that's the thing. That's the reason I keep saying you can't be just talking to everybody. This situation is life-threatening. And one person who is too weak to stand up to his questioning can make all the difference. That's totally unacceptable. Well, Overall, I thought this was very enlightening, this episode of Sassy Gran Doris, and I so appreciate them because they gave so much information. I put the link below for you to go check out the full video because I did have to edit it pretty much in order to make this as short as possible, but you want to hear the whole thing, so I put the link to that below. See the domestic violence hotline below, so just go there to that website when you can and be sure to get some help for yourself because this is about you. This is about you healing the chasm that keeps drawing this kind of stuff into your life. Always remember your greatest power is realizing the truth of who you are. Know that truth. If you find this of benefit to you, if you find any value, please click below to subscribe to the channel. It's free. Thanks.